Maybe you heard about it. Art can be dangerous, especially if it's Expressionism, the art movement that shook the world and rattled the Nazis. Expressionism wasn't just paint on canvas, it was a raw scream against conformity. The movement captured the inner turmoil of the human soul. To the Nazis, this was degenerate art, a threat to their ideology. They banned it, destroyed it, and persecuted its creators. So next time you see an expressionist piece from this era, remember it's not just art. It's a powerful statement of true defiance, and that's why the Nazis feared it. Expressionism was an international movement in the early 20th century, but primarily in Germany and Austria, encompassing visual arts, architecture, theatre, cinema, dance, and literature. It sought to portray genuine emotions and subjective experiences instead of the external reality. Themes such as feelings of loneliness, anxiety, isolation, and raw sexuality reflected the artist's focus of the human psyche. Rooted in post-impressionism and symbolism, expressionism took significant influence from artists like Paul Gauguin, Vincent van Gogh, and Edvard Munch. Their bold colors, emotional intensity, and exploration of psychological themes, exemplified by Munch's The Scream from 1892, paved the way for expressionist ideals. The rise of psychoanalysis, particularly the theories of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, inspired artists to explore the subconscious. Expressionist artists utilized bold, non-naturalistic colors, distorted forms, and dynamic compositions to intensify emotional impact. Prioritizing emotional truth over realistic imagery, they often incorporated elements from non-Western art, referred to as primitive art at the time, drawing inspiration from African masks and oceanic sculptures to challenge traditional European aesthetics. The renowned Pablo Picasso engaged with African art in a parallel track to the Expressionist fascination with primitive art in the early 20th century. Around 1907, Picasso created Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, a groundbreaking work that incorporated elements of African masks and sculpture. This painting was a significant shift in his style, breaking away from traditional representation and contributing to the development of Cubism. By integrating African motifs, Picasso sought new forms of expression to convey complex emotional and psychological states. His approach mirrored that of expressionist artists who also looked to non-Western art to challenge conventional aesthetics. Picasso's exploration fits into the timeline as part of a broader movement among avant-garde artists seeking fresh inspiration from diverse cultures. Women artists significantly contributed to Expressionism. Käthe Kollwitz portrayed the hardships of the working class with profound empathy. Gabriele Münter and Marianne von Worefkin, associated with Der Blaue Reiter, explored vivid colors and emotional depth. Their work was important to the movement, highlighting diverse experiences and expanding its expressive range. Many women of the Expressionist movement, however, were marginalized and forgotten in traditional art history narratives. Die Brücke, another expressionist movement founded in Dresden in 1905, aimed to create a new artistic expression reflecting modern life's anxieties. Their work interpreted urban scenes, nude bodies, and landscapes with bold colors and raw forms. Ernst Ludwig Kirchner's painting, Street Dresden from 1908, portrays a bustling city with distorted figures and intense colors, conveying urban chaos and alienation. The group used printmaking, particularly woodcuts, to make art more accessible and to experiment with stark contrasts. Haeckel's woodcut frenzy, reclining from 1910, emphasizes authenticity over idealization. Established in Munich in 1911 by Wassily Kandinsky and Franz Marc, Der Blaue Reiter included artists like Alexei von Jawlensky and Paul Klee. Inspired by spirituality and abstraction, they sought to express inner feelings. Kandinsky, who suffered from the perceptual phenomenon synesthesia, visualized music through abstract forms as seen in Composition 7. Mark focused on animals as symbols of purity. His The Large Blue Horses represents harmony with nature. In Austria, artists like Egon Schiele and Oskar Kokoschka were prominent figures. Schiele's intense portraits, such as Seated Male Nude and Self-Portrait, explored vulnerability and existential angst, often provoking controversy. Kokoschka's painting, Knight Errant from 1915, symbolizes inner turmoil amid chaos. His play Murderer, The Hope of Women is considered one of the first expressionist dramas. World War I profoundly affected expressionism, leading to the dissolution of key groups and intensifying themes of despair. Artists like Franz Marc and August Macke were killed in combat. The post-war period saw the rise of Neue Sachlichkeit, the new objectivity, with artists adopting a more realistic and critical approach to illustrate Weimar Germany's harsh realities. In the 1930s, the rise of the Nazi regime in Germany was a devastating period for contemporary art. The Nazis sought to promote an idealized vision of German culture rooted in classical aesthetics and nationalist themes. Modern art movements like Expressionism were condemned as degenerate art or Entartete Kunst because they did not align with the regime's propagandistic goals and were seen as corrupting influences threatening the purity of German society. In 1937, the Nazis organized the infamous Degenerate Art exhibition in Munich, displaying over 650 confiscated works from 32 museums. Artworks by expressionist artists such as Kirchner, Nolde, Max Beckmann, Kandinsky and Paul Klee were presented in a chaotic manner, accompanied by mocking slogans to incite public ridicule. The exhibition attracted over 2 million visitors, turning art censorship into a form of mass propaganda. The regime systematically confiscated thousands of modern artworks from German museums. Many pieces were sold abroad to fund the state, while others were destroyed. Artists labeled as degenerate faced severe consequences. They were banned from exhibiting or selling their work, dismissed from teaching positions, and subjected to harassment. Ernst Ludwig Kirchner, deeply affected by the removal of his works and the vilification of his art, faced a personal and professional crisis. In 1938, living in Switzerland, he was struggling with depression and deteriorating health, and he tragically took his own life. Emil Nolde, despite being a member of the Nazi Party and hoping his art would be embraced, was shocked to find over 1,000 of his works confiscated, the most of any artist. Being prohibited from painting professionally, he created his so-called unpainted paintings, small watercolors produced in secret during the war years. The persecution extended to many others. Max Beckmann fled to the Netherlands. Paul Klee was dismissed from his teaching position and emigrated to Switzerland. Wassily Kandinsky moved to France to escape the oppressive environment. This systematic oppression stifled Germany's creative community, causing a significant loss to the nation's cultural heritage. However, the suppression inadvertently spread Expressionism internationally as exiled artists carried their ideas abroad, influencing movements like abstract Expressionism in the United States. After the fall of the Nazi regime and the end of World War II, there was a concerted effort within Germany to confront past atrocities and rebuild cultural identity. Artists and intellectuals sought to reclaim Expressionism as a vital part of German heritage that had been unjustly maligned. Exhibitions were organized to reintroduce modern art to the public, and surviving artists resumed their work. This recognition was part of a broader movement toward cultural restoration and democratization. So, despite the Nazis' attempts to eradicate it, Expressionism certainly persisted and even evolved. The movement's emphasis on emotional depth and individual perspective resonated with post-war sentiments. In post-World War II America, abstract expressionism also developed, sharing expressionism's emphasis on emotional intensity and inner experience. Jackson Pollock expanded on this legacy with his action paintings, like Number 5, where he dripped paint onto canvases laid on the ground, a direct expression of his subconscious, earning him the nickname Jack the Dripper. Mark Rothko, associated with color field painting, created works featuring luminous rectangles to evoke deep emotional responses as seen in Number 61, Rust and Blue. In the late 1970s and 80s, Expressionism experienced a revival. German artists like Georg Baselitz, Anselm Kiefer and Jörg Immendorf later revisited Expressionist techniques to confront issues of identity, history and politics. In the United States, artists such as Jean-Michel Basquiat, Julian Schnabel and David Sala emerged as key figures. This global resurgence reaffirmed Expressionism's impact, influencing postmodern art by emphasizing emotional depth and subjective experience. If you are further interested in exploring the Expressionism art movement, check the link in our description where you will find interesting art books on the topic. This was all from Leap Art TV this time. Remember to hit that subscribe button so we can meet in the next brush stroke of brilliance.